Hey everybody, what is going on? Fallout here, and today I'd like to talk to you about blast radius and velocity on your rocket launchers and grenade launchers. Which is more important? Which is going to help you more in-game, and why? Very similar discussion as a recent video of mine, the old Kill Clip versus Rampage video. Link in the top right corner if you haven't seen it yet. Anyway, let's start off with rocket launchers. Blast radius and velocity, which is more important? The answer actually depends on what you're using the launcher for, PvP or PvE. As you may have guessed, blast radius is massively important in PvP. Some people I've talked to think that rockets with a higher blast radius flat out do more damage. Not true. In PvP, rockets have a direct impact damage cap of 300 regardless of blast radius. But we don't go into PvP and aim our rockets directly at the chests of other players. Shaxx would punch you in the head if he saw you doing that. How most PvP players use rockets is shoot them as close to the enemy as you can, usually hitting either a nearby wall or the ground around the Guardian's feet to rely on the splash damage to lock up the kill. Having a higher blast radius is really important for that. The higher your blast radius, the further away your rocket can explode from the enemy while still giving you that one-hit kill. If your rocket has low blast radius, your splash damage isn't going to be strong enough to lock up that one shot depending on how far away it goes off from the target.
But Fallout, if my velocity is really low, won't my rockets be super slow?
Great question, viewer with the almost exact same voice as me. Here's some side-by-side footage of two rocket launchers, one with very high velocity, the Bygones, and one with very low velocity, the Roar of the Bear. As you can see, the difference between a sky-high velocity and a dirt-poor one is really not that big of a difference, in terms of PvP, that is. Most rocket launching in PvP happens at mid-range, so having a rocket with max blast radius and who cares velocity seems to be the way to go. But what about PvE? Now, it depends on what you're doing in PvE, but the way I see it, there's two ways to use rocket launchers in this world. One, rocket enemies like you would in the Crucible, and two, using rockets to do crazy optimal DPS to giant strike and raid bosses. Most people I know are doing the latter. In PvE, what you're looking for in a rocket launcher flips from what you were looking for in PvP. Take the new Riven Cheese, for example, using rocket launchers to DPS the bejesus out of her and take her down in under one phase. If you haven't seen that video, check out the top right corner right now. So yeah, because Riven doesn't really move, it's easy to hit your target and you don't need to worry about blast radius, aka splash damage. More velocity means your rockets are going to be connecting with your PvE target slightly quicker. Remember, velocity just means the speed at which your rocket goes through the air. It doesn't affect how quickly you fire out rockets though. That would be rounds per minute. If you want to get really technical, your ideal PvE boss shredding rocket launcher is going to be high RPM, high velocity, and a special combination of low blast radius and cluster bombs, a perk on rocket launchers that players love to have, myself included. There's a very particular reason that you may hear some players talking about cluster bomb rockets being paired together with low blast radius, specifically for PvE. Here's the deal on that. Your cluster bomb spread is affected by two things. One, a little bit of RNG, and two, blast radius. For the most part, a smaller blast radius means that more often than not, your cluster bomb spread will be less wide and more concentrated. RNG still does play a factor though, much like shotgun pellet spread. There were some times I saw when even though my rocket launcher had a very low blast radius, the cluster bomb spread still managed to be fairly wide, purely by chance, mind you. But again, more often than not, it seemed that rocket launchers with a high blast radius produced a wide cluster bomb spread, and rockets with a low blast radius produced a more compact cluster bomb spread. With all of this in mind, here's what that means for you and your rocket launcher. For PvE, again, your ideal boss-killing rocket launcher is going to be high rounds per minute, high velocity, and low blast radius. With high velocity and high RPM, your rockets are going to be hitting their target quicker, and therefore you are going to hit your maximum damage output faster. At the same time, a low blast radius paired together with cluster bombs is going to make it more likely likely that your cluster bomb spread will be smaller and more condensed, which is what you want for a raid boss, because that means your clusters are more likely to stay in a tighter knit area and do that all-important extra damage to the boss. On the flip side, in PvP, your ideal Guardian killing rocket launcher is likely going to be maxed out blast radius, as that's by far the most important thing in obtaining a direct one-and-done kill via splash damage. Yeah, your rocket won't reach the target nearly as fast, but again, in PvP, most rocketing takes place at mid to close range, and as we've seen, the loss in overall velocity isn't going to be a game changer on firing just one rocket up close. Max blast radius, when paired together with cluster bombs, is going to increase the chances of your bombs being blasted further out from the impact zone, but that's okay in PvP, because you want to cover a wider area with more damage for the possibility of multi-kills. Get it? Good. Max blast radius and who cares velocity for PvP, and high velocity, low blast radius for PvE. How about grenade launchers? Oh, I thought you'd never ask. This discussion is a little easier because unlike rocket launchers, you don't see too many teams using only grenade launchers to DPS a raid boss. Oh, for fuck's sake. Well, anyway, rocket launchering bosses is way better for DPS. Grenade launchers mostly hang out in Crucible, so let's look there. Starting with blast radius. As you might have guessed, same deal as rocket launchers. If you have a low blast radius, your grenade launcher will be unable to get one-hit kills purely by splash damage if detonated too far away from your target. Grenade launchers with a very high blast radius can very easily pick up on one-hit kills from the same detonation distance, because, again, the splash damage is stronger. And even though that probably means you'll be sacrificing a little bit of velocity, not really that big a deal. Check out the side-by-side. Even though a higher velocity means your projectile travels faster, not really a deal breaker in PvP. In my opinion, you're much better off with a top-tier blast radius and going for favorable splash damage kills up close. If you're literally a perfect grenade launcher shot and you only hit people square in the chest with your grenade shots, then alright, go with velocity. That was sarcasm, for the record. And on the subject of velocity, I've had a couple people tapping me on the shoulder about this. Rangefinder. Increased projectile velocity while aiming rocket launchers and grenade launchers. Yeah, about that. The difference from what I've seen is minor. Painfully minor. Check the footage. 2 grenade launchers, identical velocity, one with rangefinder, one without. Did this with both the play of the game and the outrageous fortune. The velocity boost advantage on rangefinder is literally frames. If you're asking me, totally not worth it, not really going to significantly help your velocity. To play devil's advocate for a minute, you'll notice the only grenade launchers I tested here with rangefinder were drum magazine grenade launchers. I did not test single shot ones, mostly because the vast majority of rangefinder grenade launchers in the game are drum magazine. The MILITIA'S BIRTHRIGht, the kinetic grenade launcher, can possibly drop with rangefinder in column 4. But as we all know, my RNG is pretty terrible, and I wasn't able to get one with rangefinder to test it, so that may be an exception to the rule. I'll let you know if I ever find out. Furthermore, rangefinder also drops on some rocket launchers. However, I currently have none with rangefinder, so it's possible that it's more helpful on rockets, but if I'm making an educated guess here, I'm gonna go with nah for 500, Alex. If I get a rangefinder rocket, I'll let you know the results, but for now, be skeptical on how much it actually helps your velocity. And that's it. I hope you feel a little more knowledge on the topic of grenade and rocket launchers. Take what you've learned and go forth. Blow up some guardians in PvP or make Riven wish that she never opened her mouth in front of you. Make me proud. Hey everybody, Fallout here, and today's video was brought to you by GT Throne Gaming Chair Company. Let me hit you with a little bit of knowledge. There are 3 things in life that you should never ever go cheap on. We got 1, toilet paper, 2, sushi, and 3 gaming chairs. And let the record show that I have learned my lesson the hard way on all 3 of those things. Got a GT Throne right here, very comfortable. I freaking love this thing, never going back to an old, terrible chair. So if you have some free time on your hands, head on over to gtthrone.com, check out the selection, and if you decide you want to buy one of these bad boys, be sure to use promo code FALLOUT for 10% off of your final order. Don't say I never did anything for you. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.